the one who is calling out near the palace. Otherwise, no citizen of this country can come near this palace. She looked down and saw an old beggar standing below the palace. She thought, "In the name of God, what can I give?" Then, prompted by a certain thought, she removed her crown and threw it into the beggar's cloth bag. Seeing the crown, the beggar was very surprised. He looked up at the queen, who was still watching him from the window. Then the beggar left, offering prayers for her. That beggar was actually a king from a neighboring country, who had come in disguise to observe the conditions of this land. He had often heard from people about the cruelty and oppression in this land. Being the king of a neighboring country, he considered it his duty to see the state of this country himself, and to send an appropriate message to the tyrant king, to try to stop him from his injustices. Though the queen had given away the crown as charity, she grew worried, thinking, "When the cruel king returns and sees the crown missing, he will be furious." This thought began to trouble the queen. When the king returned from the hunt, he found the queen very disturbed. He asked the reason, but the queen made excuses to avoid the question. Several days passed like this, and the king remained unaware of the truth. One day, an envoy from the neighboring country's kind-hearted king arrived in Rome, and the cruel king received word of this. He immediately ordered the royal court to be assembled, and told his minister, "We shall meet the envoy in court." The next day, the royal court was held. The king used to take the queen along to court as well. As usual, he went to the queen and asked her to get ready for court. The queen quickly wore her royal attire and left with the king for court. When the king noticed the queen wasn't wearing her crown, he stopped immediately, for entering court without a crown was against royal protocol. He asked the queen, "Where is your crown?" Hearing this, the queen grew nervous and confessed everything to the king. The moment he heard this, the king flew into a rage and had the queen thrown out of the palace immediately. After that, when the king reached the court, all the courtiers became fearful upon seeing the king's furious demeanor. The king said to the minister, "Present the envoy from the neighboring country." The envoy was brought in immediately. When he read aloud the message from his kind-hearted king, the cruel king became even more enraged, and considering the message an insult, he had the envoy thrown out of the palace. As the envoy exited the palace, he had already learned much about the state of the country. He returned to his homeland and informed his kind-hearted king of all the circumstances. Hearing this, the kind-hearted king became deeply sorrowful. He thought, "The merciful queen was cast out of the palace because of me." He immediately sent his soldiers to Rome, with orders to find the queen and respectfully present her before him. But despite much effort, when the soldiers returned empty-handed, the king himself mounted his horse and set out in search of the queen. At last, he found her in a forest, dressed in tattered clothes. Upon seeing her, he immediately recognized her and said, "Daughter, forgive me. Because of me, you had to endure this terrible fate." The merciful queen was very surprised to hear this. The kind-hearted king looked at her astonishment and said, "Daughter, I am the same beggar to whom you gave your crown in charity. I am the king of the neighboring country. When I heard the tales of cruelty and oppression in your land, I disguised myself and came to witness the state of your people firsthand." Hearing this, the merciful queen felt some comfort and agreed to leave with the kind-hearted king to his country. That king had no children of his own, so he adopted her as his daughter. Since the king had grown very old, he entrusted her with his crown and throne, and himself withdrew from worldly matters to devote his time to prayer. Meanwhile, in Rome, when the citizens had grown tired of the cruel king's oppression, they finally revolted. With great difficulty, the tyrant king barely managed to escape with his life. After the rebellion, one of the ministers took control of the kingdom's affairs. A few days later, when the minister learned that their merciful queen was now ruling over the neighboring country, he sent her a message, requesting her to take charge of Rome's crown and throne as well. On the minister's request, the queen added Rome to her own kingdom. The queen often distributed alms to the poor with her own hands. One day, while she was handing out alms among the poor and beggars, she was suddenly startled. Standing before her in a miserable state, begging with outstretched hands, was none other than her husband, the same cruel king, now in the form of a beggar. Even in that condition, she recognized him immediately. But her husband could not recognize her, because the queen had covered her face with a veil. The queen immediately pulled her hand away, which caused great sorrow to the cruel king. He had been wandering, battered and bruised for many days, and was suffering terribly from hunger. When he turned away in despair, the queen's guards seized him and took him with them. They gave him proper clothing to wear. After bathing and changing his clothes, the guards placed food before him. He was puzzled as to why he was being shown such kindness. He thought, "Could it be that they've recognized me as the king of Rome?" Once he finished eating, the guards took him to the royal court. When he saw his queen sitting on the throne, he bowed his head in shame. One by one, all his past cruelties came rushing back to him. In the full court, he asked his queen for forgiveness. The queen also forgave him with a generous heart, because after enduring so many hardships, he had now realized that oppressing the poor was a terrible sin. He sincerely repented for his past deeds. The queen, with great respect and honor, seated him once again on the royal throne, and said, "Your Majesty, thank God that he has guided you to the right path. I now have this hope from you, that from now on you will do good deeds for the prosperity of the kingdom and its people. You have now seen for yourself that in return for giving away my crown in charity, God has blessed us not with one, but with 2 kingdoms." Hearing this, the king made a vow before the entire court that from that day forward, he would never commit injustice again. Friends, how did you like this story? Please be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much for watching the video.